All right, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy Joshua City here, 86 Boxing Podcast, episode 25. We're back up in this thing again. And I do have a very, very, very special guest here today. We've discussed in the past, or at least I have on this podcast, expanding the boundaries somewhat, getting to some individuals who are doing great things in this world in different arts and areas and all of that. And of course, we had some good boxing that was on last night. We can always get to that. But today we're going to talk to one of my favorite artists who just released a great album that you'll have to check out. You'll get to hear about it here as we're discussing it on this podcast. But it's my guy, Fabian, and we're here today to talk about his album, just music in general, and all the things that he has going on. So, Fabian, what's up, my man? How's it going?
Thanks, Josh. What's up, man? I appreciate all the kind words, man. That's awesome. It's really awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, all right. It's good to see you. You know, I've been checking out the album. I know you released it recently, and I have to say, I've shared this with you in the past as well. That I think it's a great album. It's solid from top to bottom. It really speaks through so many different emotions, and it really will give listeners a true feel for sort of who you are. And I think it's very adaptable to what just we all typically just go through in life, and it kind of speaks volumes in that regard, man.
Yeah, man. It's crazy because that's exactly the music that I was hoping would come out and or that I would write. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting how that's the hope, and the fear is that that it'll come out sounding like crap, but the truth is that, as an artist, there's a lot of expectations that you put on yourself, in a lot of different ways. I've spoken and gotten to know so many artists through this experience. And there's a lot of stuff out there that we as artists just don't release, because we hold ourselves to such high standards. So like a lot of these songs, most of these songs actually, I've had on the hard drive for 5 years or more. And I just, they needed some time, they needed some work, they needed some settling in and confidence. So I just kind of like thought to myself, it's time. These songs, after showing them to a couple of close friends, even performing them, in small performances, open mics and things like that, getting some feedback, it was time to, have it out for everyone to hear. And, I'm glad that it's finally out, and I'm really proud of it.
Good stuff, good stuff. 86 Boxing Podcast here with Fabian. That's spelled 5ab1an, and I know that has a backstory. The new album is called Box of Chains and Locks. And I'm telling you, people, for everyone listening, this is a treat. Go listen on all those listening platforms, viewing platforms, or whatever they are out there. You know what it is: Apple Music, YouTube Music, which is what I've been listening to it on. I've moved over to that YouTube Music realm now. Amazon Music, everything. Go check this out for sure. But yeah, here with Fabian again, as mentioned, 5ab1an. That's the
That's right.
spelling of it.
That's right.
And Fabian, could you tell us the meaning behind that, actually?
Yeah. So, there's growing up for me, it's, I listen to a lot of things, but my main musical influences have always come from, rock and hip hop. So, the five and the one in my stage name, my real name is Fabian, but the way I spell it is, is the stage name, 5ab1an. And the reason being is because there's actually a Doors song, from the band The Doors, called 5 to 1. And The Doors is one of my favorite, bands, rock bands. But in the hip hop community, it's been sampled quite a bit. from some of my favorite artists, Jay Z being one of them.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and it's also been sampled by, if I'm not mistaken, Most Def. So, and I think it's been sampled a few more times. But those are just two of, like, my favorite rappers of all time. So, um, and it just, to me, it has like a deep, those numbers, and that phrase, like 5 to 1, um, and that song, just kind of signifies the blend and the inspiration of, cohesiveness from two different genres, um, and how today, in music today, even pop music is kind of a product of that, just kind of rock and hip hop just kind of working together over the years, and through our generation, it's, you have rock and rap kind of meshing together, um,
Yeah.
and I love the when genres kind of fuse together. That's how you come up with new sounds. I feel my music does that. There's definitely music in my, or sounds in my album that are different, but familiar at the same time, and I love how my music can do that. Just like, the 5 to 1, sort of small, but to me, it's a meaningful reference to, rock and hip hop, meshing together, and creating something new.
All right, cool. Yeah, that is good stuff. And, it's a reminder, just that influence is just out there and runs deep. I just know that even listening to music myself, I would say coming up, I wasn't exposed to as much rock, but more so here in my adulthood, I have been over the last decade or two, really the last 2 decades, I would say. And it's crazy hearing some of these songs that have been sampled and just hearing where that influence came on, or where it came about. It's always cool and unique when you can just pick up on that when you hear one of these modern day songs and you're like, hey, and then end up hearing one of the older songs that influenced it, that it may have been sampled from. It's I always enjoy picking up on that type of stuff right there. So I feel where you're coming from.
Oh yeah, there's so much education in there. Especially with hip hop, and rap, and that's one thing that I feel like, now in today's, rap and stuff like that, I don't really hear too much samples anymore. We should get back to a sample culture, which I really like, because it's like,
Yeah,
that's how people learn about, the past, and that's also how people learn about current music. Like, some people take, like, jazz parts of songs and will sample them in hip hop, and that sounds, if you're like us, and like, you've heard that before, it sounds very obvious, and you're like, yeah, of course. But if you're young, if you're like in high school right now, I don't think you know what the sample culture really is. Or maybe you do, I don't know. But like, I've listened to a lot of um, current rap and hip hop, music, and you don't, at least I don't hear a lot of samples, anymore, and it's really an art. It's really, really an art that I think it should make its way back on the charts.
yeah, no, I'm with you there without a doubt. You can make beautiful music from samples, just taken from the past and all that stuff. I'm in agreement with you. Yeah, we have seen sort of a shift, and with music as such that it's sample. You probably see it more so on the indie scene, more the underground scene, but it
Yeah.
doesn't quite make it to those airwaves where you have a lot of this mainstream play and things of that nature. So I'm with you there for sure. And just thinking of that, I think that going back to your album, Box of Chains and Locks, when I think about that sort of timeless stuff that could be played and essentially sampled, utilized, regardless of the era or time frame that we're in. Say if we were 100 years from now, I think there's relevancy to the album in itself with every song that is a part of the album, and the aptly titled track, "Box of Chains and Locks," which hey, it's a deep song, but I feel it speaks to me. What ultimately made you go with that title, box of chains and locks, and outside of just sort of me saying the obvious of I can definitely feel where it's coming from, or just thinking about it in the general term. But what is
Yeah.
the spice behind that, that inspired this sort of album title, and how it ultimately played out?
Well, it came from that song, and the lyric is, it's a sad song about love. The lyric is, love in my case is a paradox stuck in a box of chains and locks, and um, the lyric is basically it's about a love that can never happen. It's about it's a story. It's a love that is going to be forever, bound. But at the same time, um, they're kind of stuck with in that they're stuck in each other's lives. Like they want to keep each other. The people want to keep each other in the same in each other's lives, but at the same time, it's like there's chains and locks. There's things that are preventing the love from happening, and like the it's sort of like my wife and I were going through something um, back in the day. We had you know we were long distance for a while, and um, it's one of those things where we were at a crossroads, and we were long distance, and the long distance had gotten to us, and like right before I moved here, the long distance really got the best of us, and we broke up for a while. This is when we were dating, and so it was one of those things where um, we wanted to be together, but and we were in each other's lives. So I guess for me, that was like the box. But then there were these things that were kind of keeping us in chains, kind of like keeping us from like being with each other. So I had that idea, I guess, and I wrote a poem about it. And Box of Chains and Locks is the poem. Because notice like that song doesn't have like a chorus or anything like that. So it was just kind of this poem I wrote, and I remember uh, I came up with the guitar part first, and I was like, "This is cool. We have to use this for something." And so I just figured it's a good. It works for the one of those songs that is a poem that I can kind of sing to it. Um, and it ended up being, I naturally, there are a lot of pieces I have, a lot of songs I have that come from poetry, that I write a lot of poetry. And as I was kind of like working on songwriting with the structure of like the verses and the choruses and the bridge and all that stuff, Box of Chains and Locks was one of those songs, and it almost didn't make the album because I thought to myself, this isn't a structured song. It's so I thought to myself, I'm not going to put this on the album because it's not a structured song. But then what happened was a friend of mine listened to it, and he was like, "You got to make this a single," and I was like, "What?" No, man, it's not it can't be a single because it's not like it doesn't fit the mold. Like it's not it there's no there's no chorus, there's no verse. And he was just like, no, I don't care, like this song hits, like it hits. You have to make this, you have to at least put it on the album. And I was like, I don't even want to put it on the album. Like I'll maybe put it on SoundCloud or something. So at the end of the day, the song came from, it was like one of my most, I mean, all the songs on there are personal, but at the same
Yeah.
time, like he was the deciding factor on whether it would actually make it on the album, because it almost didn't make the album, because it to me, it wasn't a structured song. It just didn't fit the mold of like of a song. It almost was like spoken word, you know. But a lot of people really enjoy it. A lot of people
Yeah.
enjoy it. A lot of people. I've played it. I'm gonna play it live at the show. I'm having an album release party this Saturday um,
All right.
in Arlington. I'll get into that a little more later, but playing that the Saturday night, and it's exciting to play with the drum kit. With my friend Brennan. He's going to
Oh
be
yeah.
playing the drums, and um, at open mics I've been playing it, and it's just been me on the guitar, which sounds great too. Don't get me wrong, but with the drum beat up there, it's great. And I didn't think it was gonna get such a good reaction. So um, it's one of those who would have thought kind of situations. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I've heard, some of the best work can be some of those things that you as an artist may be sort of pushing to the side or ready to not include or throw out or whatever, and then someone else hears it and it affects them in a different way. I know you mentioned the backstory associated with it, which of course, music in itself, or there's something about those emotions that drive music in the sense of writing at times where you are going through different things, pain, and I think it takes some sort of bravery, and you have to be really in tune and one with yourself to even open up and share those things via recording. But I've often seen that being some of the sort of best work, and that is where I think so many people connect with that relevancy to sort of real life and what is actually happening and how they can relate to that. So I do like that aspect, and I feel that there is pretty much a ton of that throughout this album that you're providing and
Yeah,
that
man.
you just
Appreciate that.
released.
I
And
appreciate that.
yeah, no doubt about it. I was listening to it earlier, and and speaking of that, and this is more in the middle, sort of towards the ends of the album, but I think of the song well, when I hit rock bottom,
Oh yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. That
I
one's a
go. That's an
yeah,
example right there, But I really love
yeah.
that song and the sort of meaning behind it, and I think that is definitely one of the gems of the album as well.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So when I hit bottom is one of those. As sad of a sounding song it sounds. It's the chorus is like the most inspirational part, because like
Yeah,
I out of nowhere, to me that's like um not I don't get into like touting my own horn or whatever, but or tooting my own horn, but like I think that's probably the best chorus I've written, because the idea, to find gold, sometimes you have to really dig for it. And the way I thought of it, or the way I think of it is like, sometimes you have to be very very low and very down, to find the to find gold, and sometimes when you're looking for gold, you've exhausted everything, and you think you're about to give up, and the next thing you know, you found it. So that song I wrote when I was like feeling pretty low, in life. And we but not it was just like you know we all have our low times. And that was a year where a lot of things were not going right, in in a lot of ways. Um, and I that was the one of the few times, um, in the rest of the collection of these songs, where um, it was that time where I sat down and I wrote a song, and those words just kind of came out. And by the time I finished writing it, I started to, it was like the start of feeling better, and when I hit the chorus of when I hit bottom, I'll find gold. It's it's like I use it as such an inspiration now, where um, because those that wasn't the first or last time that I have felt that way. So it's important to know that when you're feeling down like that, if you're, whether it's depression or anxiety or whatever, um, the human the human psyche can be um, you know what's the word, can be resilient,
Oh
sometimes.
yeah.
And um, there could be something that can pull you out. Something can be the gold. And for me at the time, it was noticing, my loved ones that were with me. It was noticing that I woke up the next day and it was a new day. It was noticing that little things, just little things that I just started noticing that little that were good, that were happening, as opposed to the
Oh
things
yeah.
that weren't happening. So after I wrote when I hit bottom, and so and let go was
Oh yeah.
kind of was like before that. It was like when I was in the really real deep of it. Just kind of like you know uh wanting to, the idea of leaving the spot where I was, because um having to turn it all around, because the way the situation was going was not good. And
Yeah.
the way things were happening at the time were not, was not something that was good for anyone, let alone myself. So but it was hard. It was really hard, knowing that you have to leave a place, um or at least knowing that things had to change.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you don't want to leave, right? So a lot of that had to do with saying goodbye to my home, like my home
Oh, okay.
city of Yonkers. So
Yonkers.
yeah, so I'm from Yonkers, and it was hard because I had to move on to bigger and better things, and I just
Yeah.
it's one of those things that I wasn't ready for, but I had to do it. So it's one of those things that let go really kind of helped me get through.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, so it was. But I think that, like, um, ultimately these songs are really about just persevering and just kind of getting through. And but they're also about, like, love, and they're about loving someone, loving a place that you're from, but also love,
Oh yeah.
trying to change your situation, um, trying to trying to escape a situation. Like, for
Hmm.
example, like, um, Up High is kind of like, to me, it's the part of the album where you're kind of like, where I'm trying to, like, escape it and trying to, like, party it all away. It's
Yeah.
just, it's the idea of, like, trying to live, um, because that song was written when I was very young. Not very young, but
Okay.
it was a while ago, but in my 20s. And so it's one of those songs that you write when you don't want the night to end. You don't want, like,
Yeah.
the good night to end. You go out with your friends,
Yeah. It certainly gives you that vibe. I love
you
that vibe that it gets off.
yeah. And it's one of those things where, like, imagine, like, the whole album is kind of like it to me, it kind of, like, gives you a little of the 8 Mile vibe, in a way,
Oh yeah.
in the sense that, like, there's that struggle every day, but then,
Hmm.
at night you kind of do stupid shit to kind of, like, get over what's happening during the day, and get over, like, the hardships of life that are happening during the day. And that's kind of like what Bossa Chains and Locks is really about. It's like, it's kind of, like, it's trying to get through each day, It's trying to get through it in the most, uh, in the best way possible, like doing the very best you can.
Hmm.
Like not every day is going to be like you're not going to make the best choices every day, but at the same time, it's a blessing that you get through it. It's a blessing that you get up the next day and there's a whole new day, and
Oh yeah.
and I think that's ultimately what I hope people will um, will receive the album as, um, but at the same time, like people will receive it however way they're gonna receive it. Hopefully they'll still hear it as good music, which is good too. So
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think I ultimately think it gives off that aura, in terms of it being good music, and I think that people can certainly vibe with it and the flow as well,
yeah,
and the structure overall. You can just see that the thought was put into every meticulous detail, which matters for sure in the world of music because, of course, you're taking a piece of course, when an album is first released, that is, you're taking a piece of someone's day, their time there, and then that generally leads to them suddenly, essentially making this an addition to their life. I've listened to this album several times over. At this point, I don't even know how many times. It's been a ton of times. I
I
can say that.
appreciate that, man. I
It's
appreciate
just,
that so much.
yeah, no problem at all.
That is so cool, man. That's so cool.
No, no, no. Hey, I appreciate you releasing this. I think that, yeah, it's just rides from top to bottom. So yeah, it's 10 songs, 35 minutes. So yeah, I've dedicated a lot of time to these 35 minutes when I'm just riding. I just want to vibe out, or I just need some song that I want to hear. They kind of put me in that zone. I think it has a mix of all of that, and I was just thinking about some of the stuff you were saying. Yeah, just sort of being in certain places. I think it takes sometimes in order to grow, you have to leave places, probably leave spots where you're comfortable. You have to, in some cases, leave home. All of that stuff.
Yeah,
I've experienced a similar situation as well in terms of not being back where I grew up and everything I knew was there back in where I'm from and all of that. But it turned out to be for the better. And I think that, yeah, of course, and just seeing how this album flows and everything and what you're speaking about, you're giving us that journey through, the bad times and the good times, and ultimately, that's a mixture of what we all go through. There's no way to sugarcoat it.
yeah,
It's just one of those things that is apparent in what we do in every facet of life. So, I think you did an excellent job of sort of laying all of that stuff out. And it's funny you mentioned. Let's Go, Up High, two songs that I've listened to a lot as well. Let's Go, Let Go, I feel it's very much relevant in not only the discussion we were just having, but just in general. I think it's sort of something we can tie to many things when we're in situations where we certainly have to let go of certain things in order to advance in certain areas or other areas and all of that stuff.
that's right.
Uh,
Yeah,
and 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 I think that's a good thing, And it turns out, and sometimes you have to go through those sort of
yeah,
growing pains, and you have to sacrifice certain things. That's what life is about at times, sacrificing some things. Now, as far as Up High, this is the one where this is one of the yeah, this is the only song where you featured someone else. It's x-tian.
oh
So
yeah.
what's the story behind that?
So he's my brother actually. Well, he's my cousin, but I call him
Okay.
my brother. But he's he's plays drums. He plays drums, and he and I wrote that song in the sense that he was on drums. And what's
Okay.
interesting about that? So the album has that song. There are two versions of that song. And
Yes.
so on the story goes is that the way the story goes is he lives in Florida, and so we would um, we would get into it together. We would jam together, and we love doing it every chance we get. And since we don't see each other often, because there was our
Mhm.
connection is tight, and we used to he used to live in Yonkers where I lived, but he moved when he was like 8, and so
Yonkers.
and it was yeah, and ever since then, it was kind of like one of those things where we always were like trying to see each other as much as we could, because like him and I are like, we're a big presence in each other's lives. So like he was the best man at my wedding, and I was the best man at his wedding, kind of deal. And ever since he moved, we pretty much we did everything together. Anyway, he got into drums around the time a little after actually I got into guitar, and we started making music together, and we followed the same pathway in the sense that I'm self-taught and he's
Yeah.
self-taught. So when we started jamming, his influences has been mostly like hip hop, like rhythms. So he
Yeah.
loves, like, as far as like play style, we're talking like Questlove, um like
Hmm.
Nas type, album rhythms, and you
Classical,
know
timeless type stuff, right? So.
yeah, like those kinds of rhythms. And so the what had happened was with Up High, we wrote that in Florida, in his house, and when we
Yeah.
were kids. And so we decided, what I would do is I would bring my computer and mixer, little soundboard or whatever, and I would
Hmm.
take it with me on the plane, and we would do some recording. And then I decided to bring that with me. I decided to bring all that with me, and we wrote the instrumental version of that first.
Okay.
Then it came back to Yonkers, and I wrote the lyrics. I had my other friend who's also named Chris, but his name is Christopher, but his name is Chris, but he produces at home, so he like recorded my vocals really good. Um,
Okay.
the problem with that version, though, is that we never, producers really want everything to be recorded to a click, so
Yeah.
a metronome, but we didn't do that. However, we've been playing for so long together. We know each other. We know each other, and whatever. And so we, you know, I was like, let me take it to my other friend who's a professional um, producer, and we'll see if he can do it. He said the same thing. I can't mix this. Y'all didn't play on the click, so I was like, fine. This was years ago. I
Yeah.
wanted I wanted this song in on this album so bad. So I said, let me try and redoing this song. I called Christian up, and I said, look, could I get my friend Brennan on drums for this? I know it's your song, but you'll get credit for writing it. You know, um, he said, sure. I got Brennan in. I love Brennan. He's playing the show on Saturday. Um,
Oh yes.
the drums that he was laying, they weren't hitting as like the drums that Christian was doing. And it just goes to show, like, Brennan is so talented on the drums. Like, he's very, very talented. It's just the style, that natural, like, hip hop style that works. I don't know if you can hear it when you listen to the early the I think it's track Up High, track 5, not the demo version, but the one featuring
Yeah. Yeah.
Christian in it. You know, um, I don't. There's that hip hop flow that on that specific version, that at the time, like, Brennan just, he was trying to hit it, and he knew it too. It was just hard. He just couldn't do it. And then Christian had an opportunity to come visit, I said, cool. You know, he can come. He can do it. We can re-record it. So we tried doing it, and he had trouble recreating the same drums. And I've heard this happen before. Like
Yeah.
Ringo once said, that the cuts that he does, he can only do them once.
Yeah.
A lot of times that this happens with live musicians. So Chris and I talked, and we were both like, you know what, like, even though it does sound like off, other people say it sounds offbeat. I have heard, feedback about this song, saying it doesn't sound like the best sound quality, so I have heard the negative feedback of before I released the song. I have heard the negative feedback by other professional producers. And
Mhm.
Christian and I had a conversation about it, and I said, I was the first to kind of be like, despite all that, I'm happy with this version.
Yeah.
Let's use the other version as a demo version, so that way if people could be like, hey, for people who are like, sort of like audio connoisseurs, if you will, you know, if they wanted to hear a more on time, crisp version of it, they can listen to that version. So I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let me just put that version in there. So that's kind of where that came from. And that's the story of that song. And him and I, we wrote
Mhm.
other straight rock songs, earlier. We called ourselves the Endless Nights, and we want to, we want to put out some music, probably later on in the future. Um, Maybe under that name, maybe under my name. I don't know, but we do
Cool.
have music. We do have music.
All right, yeah,
Yeah,
that's good stuff. And
yeah,
maybe, yeah, maybe it's a sign of my ears or whatever. But I didn't pick up on anything being off on the up high version featuring x-tian, and I thought it sounded super crisp. I can
yeah,
hear the drums and everything,
yeah,
and that's just based on comparing it with the demo version that is included as a bonus track on the
yeah,
album.
yeah,
I didn't catch up on that pattern being off by whether it's a millisecond or whatever the heck it may
yeah.
be, but I
It's
think it sounds super crisp.
yeah. It's what was cool is that, um, it was recorded. So the the original version, which is the one that's earlier in the album, was recorded, together. So Christian and I were in the same room, and I was playing
Yeah.
guitar. He was playing drums at the same time. But
Okay. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
yeah, and the demo version was layered recording. So like,
Uh,
I had the guitar and the bass, recorded prior, and he was playing to that, to the previous, recordings, and so it was just a different, style of playing, and, you know we liked the first version of it. It just felt,
yeah.
more organic. It felt, just, it flowed better, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel where you're coming from. Yeah, and I do sympathize. I know that it is extremely hard to reduplicate something that is laid so well. In the case of this, being that first version, just trying to
yeah,
get it exactly on point, of course. So I think that for what it's worth, yeah, this came out to be something great in even the second version of it. And I really, I think it's a highlight of the album as well in terms of one of those feel good songs that can really get you up as far as the spirit and everything. And I had a couple of other things, and this is kind of tied to some of what we're discussing. Just thinking about Yonkers, mention Yonkers, Fabian being from Yonkers and all that stuff. And I think that low key, and maybe it's not low key for some, but Yonkers is one of those areas that has had a ton of musical influence, especially on the hip hop side of things. Now, coming up in Yonkers, was that apparent as you were coming up, or is this something that came later? But I'm assuming it was probably apparent because I know that sort of like the high points for hip hop reaching, the level that it was, you had simultaneously so much going on with Yonkers with artists coming out of there, DMX, RIP, freaking
Mary J.
Jadakiss,
Blige,
Boston
Jadakiss,
area,
yeah,
Mary J. So crazy.
yeah.
So what was that like musically being there in Yonkers during like the '90s, which was most certainly the high point of them sort of coming on the scene and making themselves and making Yonkers being known in this community as a whole.
Oh man, it was crazy, man. It's just one of those things where the bar is set so high. Um,
Yeah.
the bar is set so high. Even if for me, I listened in the '90s. For me, it was hip hop, rap, um, R&B, and then it was freestyle music.
Oh yeah.
When I was coming up, and I was a young kid, and that was everywhere. I started getting into rock um, at 11, because 90
Okay.
the 90s, it was like elementary school. um it
Yeah.
was it
Yeah.
was it was I was in elementary school, and then like I was hanging out with my like an older cousin, a few older cousins of mine, and they were like, all they listened to was like Biggie and like DMX, and they're the ones. And then also when I went to school, a lot of kids, I did go to a private school, but that private school was in South Yonkers. I mean, South Yonkers is
Okay.
it was near South Broadway, and like, you know, um, everybody was listening to DMX. Everybody was listening to the
Oh
Lox.
yes.
Everybody was listening to Drag On, and like trying to,
Dragon.
yeah. Everybody was listening to them, and I was just kind of like, I remember being in like fourth grade, being like, who are these guys? And then like I went to my local like Tower Records, and I saw DMX, and he was like the kind of the first artist I ever kind of picked up. And then I realized he was from Yonkers. And then as I got older,
Hmm.
um, I saw him a few times, as I got older, because he would come to Yonkers like he's a neighbor, and like you see him, and
Yeah,
um,
he was always one of those artists that, hey, when he says he's from the area that he's from, he's like legitimately from there, and he's there on the scene, from what I
oh yeah, oh yeah,
gather.
yeah. For better for worse, like he always
Yeah,
came around. And when he was starting up and starting to become big, but he wasn't like as big yet. It was more common to see him around. um,
yeah,
and he was maybe surrounded by a few like fans, like five or so, who
yeah,
like really knew who he was. But like as I was growing up, like I got into middle school, and I saw him when I was like in seventh grade, around the
yeah.
way, and then the crowds got bigger, like 20
Oh
something
yeah,
or
that's
whatever.
crazy.
And then when I was in high school, oh man, I saw him in high school. And the block was like almost closed, because
Yeah,
but he didn't care. He just, he walked around, and he was real nice, and he really gave back to the community, in a lot of ways. And Jadakiss is
no
another
doubt.
one. The Locks,
Yeah,
they also get, they love coming around Yonkers a lot. Always talk about Yonkers. And I always resented like just the music community in general, just for not talking more about Yonkers. Like it's mostly like, I think if you're if the conversation to me is always like, if you'd have to be a real like hip hop head to know Yonkers. Like
yeah,
you'd have to be a real like you'd have to listen to you have to be a real like deep listener of hip hop. I'm not saying you necessarily have to be like our age, but if you're
yeah,
a true hip hop fan, Yonkers. And like to me, that's like, I think that's almost doing Yonkers a disservice, because I love where I'm from. I love Yonkers. Like,
yeah,
it's a hard city to grow up in. Like it's got its nice parts, but it's the rough parts are really rough. And
oh yeah.
you know, I grew up seeing some shit, and like, you know, a lot of us have, but at the same time,
without a
like
doubt.
a lot of yeah, but a lot of times, I think there is the community there. You know, art. A lot of artists come out of there,
Yeah.
and Mary J. Blige is another one. You know,
Hmm.
such a she's such a force. You know what I'm saying? She's such a force, and
Queen of R&B,
yeah,
many say Queen of
yeah,
R&B, and she's been around for a while, and she's just been continuing to put her imprint on the game.
yeah. And as as an artist, myself, and I remember growing up in a community of artists, and to me anyway, everybody secretly wanted to be great. Everybody wanted to one up the other one.
Yeah,
Everybody wanted to, and I think that was a problem, growing up for me, because I'm more of the mindset. I have more of the mindset of like, you know, like the only way I will do well is if you'll do well. Like that's the only
yeah,
way I think we'll all, like, if we all do well, that's what I want. But that was ultimately the issue, I think, with, which is looking back, on my time there in Yonkers and moving. um, that's one thing that I realized, meeting musicians and just people who are in, doing their entertainment here. um,
yeah,
People respond so much better to, here, to the, like, I want to succeed, like I'll succeed if you succeed mentality, where out there
yeah.
everybody's is every man for themselves out there.
Dog eat
So
dog,
yeah, and that but that's a New York mentality, and
Yeah, without a doubt.
yeah, and like, don't get me, like, it's helped me, like, that mentality has helped me, um sustain my energy in a lot of ways. It's helped me, like, not trust the right people, but at the same time, every almost everybody I know, um, that I came up with in, like, the music industry, like over there, like they stayed in the same spot, you know,
Yeah.
except for, the locks,
Oh yeah, yeah.
DMX, and like, and that's because, I think they all had their team. They had their team. They put their trust in the few. You know, probably. And I think right now, I mean, I don't know how it is now because,
Yeah.
I'm still not involved. I'm not involved anymore there, but I mean, I go home now to see my family. I go home to see my friends and my, my friends who still do music, that live either in Yonkers or around Yonkers. They're either not doing music anymore, or they're doing music, but, for other people outside of Yonkers. So, it's like, I just think that it's one of those things where I like to see, I like the mentality, I like the way I do it,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that way it becomes a divide and conquer kind of deal, um, as opposed
Yeah.
to as opposed to you going it alone. Um, I've got the show coming up on Saturday, and I'm hoping, it's been a group effort. So
Oh
depending on how
yeah.
the depending on how the turnout is, it's been an effort. It's been a group effort. So, um, I think that's the key to a following. It's just like talking to people, networking with people, and then saying, "Hey, look, what, like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours." That that is
Without a
that
doubt.
is that is very New York, though. That is very New York, also. Um,
Yeah.
I've seen that happen too, and like, that's something that, um, I think could benefit a lot of artists, if they network together, if they network with the right people, if we
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're very much right in terms of that. being New York and such its influence, and New York in itself has you can't spell hip hop without having New York in it in some capacity.
Yeah.
You know, or
Yeah.
you can't tell the story of hip hop or whatever. And I just think about my own self in my own life growing up, small town down south and all that stuff, and it really took me going to the Marine Corps. One of my roommates was from Rochester, New York, and he had such a major influence on me musically. My guy Technique, Brendan Rimbert, but call him Technique. You know, we dabble into
Nice.
some music stuff, but just that whole process of learning how to record all of that is just like he was polished in it. That's where I really learned how to do those types of things. He was from New York, Rochester. As a matter of fact, you're speaking on Yonkers and some of those artists. That's where I really got to hear beyond just say DMX and Jadakiss really
Hmm.
from a Yonkers perspective because he used to play a lot of Chic, he used to play a lot of Styles, he used to play a lot of
Yeah.
Dragon. So I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. So I was hearing some of their stuff, and this would have been around for me 2005. That's when we first linked up. So I was getting a lot of this sort of background stuff from him, and you're right, a lot of talented artists out of Yonkers, that area in general, and they have had an influence that I think some may not know. You generally hear, of course, when you think of rapping in New York, Brooklyn, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We know we have the likes of Jay Z, we got the Bronx, got Queensbridge, etc. But Yonkers really does have deep roots in hip hop, just in general. So
Yeah.
it's cool to be able to link up with someone like you and kind of seeing that come over twofold as far as a New York artist who is sort of bridging that gap, being open, willing to help others, all of that good stuff, man. And I think it's a good thing that you're doing.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. And I love to, you know, and that's the thing, like, hopefully, my music will, you know, continue to be heard by more people. And, I just want to, not just put myself out there, but just put other people, out there too, like, but also like, I don't want to forget my roots. Like, you know what I mean? I want to, put Yonkers
Oh
on the
yeah,
map too. And like, for that same reason, I'm like, there are, artists, there are good, good artists, good people that, deserve to have their moment in the spotlight too. Um, we need to see what we can do for each other. Um, because
it's true.
there's a lot of, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of you know I'm concentrating on myself right now, but there's a lot of art that's out there, and I think we can help each other out, by scratching each other's backs, and just helping each other get
Without a
get
doubt.
get the content out there.
Without a doubt, 86 Boxing Podcast here with Fabian. We're talking about boxing chains and locks, all that good stuff, what he
Yes,
has
sir.
going on. I must say that, just Fabian, he's like, for all the listeners out there, he's like, when it comes to music, a multi tool. I've seen him in action to a certain degree at least, but in terms of all those things that go into actually making music, he can do it all. He can pick up the guitar. I don't know what all the instruments he plays and all that stuff, but literally, if you think about making a song from scratch where it's bare bones, start with nothing, generally in the rap world or hip hop world, it all starts from a beat or instrumental, for someone who is an artist, a lyricist, or something like that. You're going to reach out to certain producers and all of this stuff to try and get that, then kind of work that vibe from there. But in the case of Fabian, it literally starts from silence, and then everything is just created from there
Yeah.
by him. And that is something that, you can't, well, I guess you can teach it in some sense, but the talent, you just can't duplicate that, being able to do it. You can teach certain aspects and all that stuff, but it's truly genius type stuff that goes on there, man.
I appreciate that, man. And I wouldn't know if you can teach it. I just kind of like, I just do it, in a sense, because mainly, it's going to sound kind of what's the word? It's going to sound pretentious, actually, but you know,
Yeah.
with the exception of literally a few musicians, just maybe like two or three, perhaps. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't formed the perfect band yet. It's really hard. Like it's really hard to
Yeah.
form like the perfect band. At least if you're not doing it, um, full time, or if you're not in it like 24/7, that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
so what I'm left with, I remember thinking like, forget it. I'm just going to do it all myself. Um, I remember thinking like there was, I don't know if you remember my drum kit that's in my house, but that originally
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
originally that was not my drum kit. It was a kit that I bought for a friend that I kept, in my parents' basement. This was a long time ago when I was a teenager, still living in my parents' house, with the thought that he was gonna sort of learn the drums because he said he wanted to for his birthday. So me
Yeah.
and a couple of our friends, we kind of like put our money together, bought him a drum kit. But he lived or he still lives in the Bronx, so he can't keep a drum kit in the apartment. So he I was like, come over when you want to practice, and when you have your drum teacher or whatever, and we'll do it. But it never took off for him. So it kind of the drum kit
Yeah.
just became mine. Um, so after a while, I was just kind of like, you know what, I'm, Christian was in Florida, and I needed to have a drummer that's like here, and I just started messing around with the drums, and I I got good at keeping a beat. I don't do anything really fancy on the drums. I play kind of like Motown beats, or kind of simple beats that kind of like carry the like Beatles, like Ringo Starr beats that kind of
Oh
carry
yeah.
a song along. Um, and then I and then that same friend also gave me his bass because he was like, "Hey, while you're at it, there's a bass I don't use. Here you go." So I was like, "All right." So I took the bass and I started playing. I started kind of playing bass, which is like, since I played guitar already, I had that similar background. But at the same time, like I wanted to play, decent bass. I didn't want to just kind of, play like half-ass bass. So um, I play decent bass. I can't, I can do some things, but there's a lot I can't do on bass. So on Up High, that's me playing bass on Up High. Um,
Okay.
Let me see, trying to think of anything else. I think that might be the only song I'm playing bass on. Every other song, it's my friend Chris. My friend Chris is a mean bass player. Oof, it's really good.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if you hear the bass line in Let Go, like I can't play that caliber bass, but Up High is more like it's more rock bass, and I feel like Let Go is more like R&B, style bass, that Chris, my friend, was playing, because he
Okay.
produced it along with my other producer friend Dennis. So Chris was on bass, and Dennis actually did the drums for that. So the bass, as a bass player, I can hold my own, and then also with the drum beats, I have the 808s that I can use as well. Um, which
Oh
actually
yeah.
is a cool effect too. So um, yeah, yeah. So I have my studio in here in the basement, so I can make music, and I can start from scratch, like you said. It's really just like a matter of like I like to start with the guitar riff, most of the time. But it depends if I'm working with someone else. Like Josh, you and I have worked together, um, before, and
Oh yeah.
and I tend to do it again. So we're gonna do it
It was an
again.
honor. It was an honor.
It's
It's
awesome.
been an honor being able to be involved.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again. But
Oh yeah.
depending on if I'm doing it myself, I typically do start with the guitar and record that to a click, and then kind of go from there. but if I'm working with someone else, I am more open. It's more of kind of a not free for all, but anything could happen if I'm working with someone else, because it really depends on how we as a team want to start the song. Um, so usually, it could be me starting on the guitar, but it could also be drums first, um, something like that.
Cool, cool. Yeah, good stuff here. Good stuff without a doubt. We just have a couple minutes here. Again, 86 Boxing Podcast talking to Fabian. Let's talk about. I know that you have a show coming up, Rhodeside Grill, July 24th. It's gonna be taking place there, Rhodeside Grill, your album release party. Let's talk about it. I'm looking forward to that. What time is that kickoff?
Yes, it kicks off at 9 p.m. and it goes until midnight. I'm so excited. Oh man, I'm so
Okay.
excited. Yes, yes, yes. I can't
All
wait.
right. Good stuff.
Yeah, man. There's it's gonna be great. I have two um opening acts, two friends of mine that are gonna open. We have a DJ that's coming. His name is Mukhtaru
Cool.
Jala. He's going to be DJing 90s hip hop music, and he does this really cool thing where he blends songs together, and that's
Uh,
really cool. So he's going to be doing an hour set. Then next, we're gonna have Tunan Vu coming to perform some guitar covers, and some songs
okay.
off of his EP and off of his original music. Um, and then Brendan and I will take over for the last hour, playing some songs from Box of Chains and Locks and some covers as well. So
All
it's
right,
gonna be,
cool. Good
it's gonna be
stuff.
fun.
Definitely looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to that. You know, we've been going through this pandemic. One of the things that has pushed us through is music. You know, we've missed that sort of live aspect for a long period of time. So
Yes.
it's going to be good to get back out there. This will be my first concert since the pandemic kicked off. I'm actually looking forward to it without a doubt. Again, 86 Boxing Podcast here with Fabian. We've been talking about Box of Chains and Locks, which is on all of the platforms. Of course, we're going to link this in the podcast information, all that good stuff. That being said, before we get out of here, for those that want to continue to follow this journey, Fabian, social media, how can they follow you? Where are you at?
Yes. So on Instagram, it's I'm at 5ab1an. I am on TikTok, even though I just got on TikTok. So what is my TikTok? Let's see.
It's
I have, I think it's, oh yeah, same thing. It's the same thing as my Instagram. So actually, no, it's at 5ab1an music. So Instagram is at 5ab1an, and my TikTok is at 5ab1an music.
cool, good stuff, Fabian. So yeah, man. Hey, I appreciate you coming on, and for all those listening, we're gonna link the album and everything. So be sure to go and check that out. We talked about a number of great songs, and trust me when I tell you, they are great. So you go listen to them for yourself. Feel free to leave comments and everything. Everything's going to be posted, and feel free to reach out to Fabian personally. He'll be able to provide you any more insights you may need. But man, I appreciate you coming on, and it's been a great time. Been good having this discussion, really breaking ground here for the 86 Boxing Podcast. It's an honor for sure having you come on board, man.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you so much for having me. 86 Boxing. This is awesome. This is a great show. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all the listeners who are listening. And this is awesome, 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 awesome.
All right, cool. Checking out then. Have a good one, everyone.